Chapter 20, Old Man Shilsky. It was November 1982, and I was tooling down Virginia State Route 460 in my green 1972 Volkswagen at 4 a.m. A few hours before, I had dropped off my ex-girlfriend Karen, a black model who renamed herself Karan. My agent told me to do it at her grandmother's house in Petersburg. Also in tow with her was her 2-year-old son, Paul, a gentle, kind boy who seemed slightly confused as to who I was. Mommy hated Karan. "You got a ready-made family now," she quipped. "Your whole life was in front of you. Now look at you." "What do you mean?" I asked. "Bye-bye, dreams," she sniffed. I ignored her. Karan and I had no plans to get married. We were not close. We were both living in Boston and decided it was time to leave town as well as each other. She was leaving her ex-husband behind. I wanted to leave myself behind. I had been working as a feature writer at the Boston Globe, a great job for a 24-year-old reporter. My best friend was a white guy about 6 years old named Ernie Santuoso, who was the Globe jazz critic then. We would walk around the features department singing Polka Dots and Moonbeams and It's You or No One by saxophonist Dexter Gordon. I could have stayed there with Ernie forever, dogging it and cracking jokes in the features department, but I couldn't decide whether I wanted to be a writer or a musician. Not knowing that it was possible to do both, in some ways I was caught between the worlds of black and white as well, because I had discovered after college and graduate school that the Ernest Change the World rap sessions me and my schoolmates had that lasted till 4 a.m. didn't change the world one iota. I can clearly remember saying to my black college roommate in my freshman year, "Racism is a problem that should end just about the time we graduate." Instead, it smashed me across the face like a bottle when I walked into the real world. Boston was not an easy place to have a racial identity crisis either. Its racial problems are complicated, spilling over into matters of class, history, politics, even education. It was more than I wanted to face, and I had to run. On the seat next to me was a small map of Virginia with the town of Suffolk circled on it, and a hand-drawn map Mommy had given me. It had taken years to solicit this information about where she grew up. Every time I'd ask about it, she'd say, "Oh yeah, well, there's nobody that remembers me," and off she went looking for a house or chasing down some errand that lasted hours, days, or weeks. It had gotten to the point where I didn't see why she made such a secret of it, and the part of me that wanted to understand who I was began to irk and itch at me like a pesky mosquito bite that cries out to be scratched. When I finally nailed her down on it, she sat at the kitchen table, pulled out an old envelope, ripped it open, and unfolded it to give her more space. She then drew me a map of where she had lived in Suffolk. She talked as she drew. "The highway goes here. Here's the bridge. The courthouse is down the road, and the Jap slaughterhouse over here." That map was the only clue I had to lead me to Mommy's family. She knew no names of people in Suffolk. "Despite having lived there for nearly 13 years, you can't remember anybody?" I asked. "Nope, nobody." "Well, I knew a girl named Frances. Who was she?" "She was my best friend. Where is she now?" "God knows." "What about her family?" "Don't remember them, but her mother could cook like the Dickens." So I went to Suffolk looking for Frances and her mother, who could cook like the Dickens. Mommy didn't remember their last name. It was 7 a.m. when I arrived in town, exhausted and hungry, after the drive from Petersburg. The town looked like its sugar days were over, quite empty, a mix of grand old buildings and more of an industrial site than a town really, with development sprawling into its surrounding areas rather than inside the town itself. I saw a McDonald's at a corner intersection. I parked there and went inside and ordered some food. I sat down at the table and opened Mommy's little hand map. I checked the map and looked out the window. Checked it again, looked out the window again. I knew I was on the main street. There was an old courthouse building catty corner to where I sat. Behind the courthouse was a graveyard. To my left was a bridge and the slaughterhouse. I was sitting right where her family's store used to be. 601 North Main Street. I left the food untouched and went outside and looked around. There was an old house behind the McDonald's. I knocked on the door and an elderly Bespectacled black man answered. I told him my business. Mother used to live here. Name was Shilsky. Jews. A little store. He fingered his glasses and stared at me a long time. Then he said, come on in here. He sat me down and brought me a soda. Then he asked me to tell my story one more time, so I did. He nodded and listened closely. Then his face broke into a smile. That means you old Rabbi Shilsky's grandson. Yup. First he chuckled, then he laughed. Then he laughed some more. He tried to control his laughing, but he couldn't. So he stopped, took off his glasses, and wiped his eyes. I started to get angry, and he apologized. His name was Eddie Thompson. He was 66. He had lived in that house all his life. It took him a minute to get himself together. I knew your mother, he said. We used to call her Rachel. I had never heard that name before, even in recounting what little she had told me of her life. Mommy had never referred to herself as Rachel. She had always called herself Ruth. I discovered later that her true name was Rachel, a Yiddish name which her family Americanized to Rachel, which she in turn further changed to the even more American-sounding Ruth. I knew that whole family, Thompson said. Rachel, Gladys, Sam, and the parents. Rachel was the kind-hearted one, Gladys, the young one. We called her Dee Dee. She was a little bitty thing. She looked more like the father, Sam, the brother. We used to call him Sparky. They say he got killed in the World War II in a plane crash. Rachel, why, she used to walk right up and down the road here, her and the mother. The mother was crippled. She used to limp. Her whole left side was messed up. Mrs. Shilsky, what a nice lady. She'd slip you a piece of fruit or candy inside the store when the old man wasn't looking. Old man Shilsky, though, he shrugged. Personally, I never had no problem with him. What was he like? I asked, my heart pounding. Why is my heart pounding? I asked myself. I wasn't sure. Like? He asked. Old man Shil, my grandfather. I didn't know what to call him. Neither one sounded right. What was Shilsky like? I asked. Well, you being his grandson and all, he shrugged again. The old man was all right. I got along with him okay. I could see in his face that he didn't believe it, so I said, you don't have to spare me. I never knew him. I'd just like to know what he was like. He cut a quick glance at the window, then said evenly, you won't find anyone around here who liked him enough to even talk about him. Why so? His dislike for the colored man was very great. How so? Well, he just disliked black folks and he cheated them. Sold them anything and everything and charged them as much as he could. If you owed him $5, he'd make you pay him back 10. He shot old Elijah Ricks in the stomach. Elijah brought that on himself, though. Went in the Shilsky store, fussing over some sardines and crackers, and wouldn't pay. Shilsky shot him in the left or right side, I can't remember which. He didn't kill him, but he was a hateful one. Old man Shilsky, his own wife, was scared of him. How do you know all this? No. Well, I could practically see into the man's house from my bedroom. We were right next door. I worked for Shilsky at one time. Made 10 cents a day firing up his stove on Saturday mornings. 'Cause Jews can't do much on Saturday. That's their Sunday, you see. He had a Cronson stove that left black marks everywhere. I wonder what happened to it. He pondered it a minute before I brought him back to the subject at hand. He had a good thing there, Eddie Thompson said. Making money hand over fist off the Negro. But see, he was mean as a dog. Mrs. Shilsky was terrified of the old man. If she was talking to you and he came into the room, she'd hush up and tremble. I'd listen in silence, his words landing on me like bricks. What happened to him, I asked. He ran off with one of the sorriest trashes, poor-ass jobs, turkey white woman you ever did see. I don't know how he got mixed up with her. She was a Claxton, Richard Claxton's wife. The old man, he fell in love with her because of Mrs. Shilsky's being like she was. I reckon. That woman was big as a house. He looked like a boy when he walked down the road next to her. He was a little bitty guy. He laughed bittersweet. Old man Shilsky, boy, he was something else. You have an idea where he went? Nope. Maybe Richmond. Don't know for sure. I sure like to find him, I said. Oh, I know where you can find him, the old black man said. He pointed down to the ground and winked. They'd let him in down there even if the bridge was out. They'd parachute him over. He talked for a long time, chuckling, disbelieving. Rachel just left one day. I'm telling you, she left and we thought she was dead. The whole family is long gone. We didn't think we'd ever see none of them again till we got to the other side. And now you pop up. Lord knows it's a great day, he asked if he could call Mommy. I picked up the phone and dialed Mommy's house long distance. Got her on the phone and told her I had somebody who wanted to talk to her. I handed the phone to him. Rachel? Yeah, Rachel. This Eddie Thompson from down in Suffolk. Remember me? We used to live right by. Yeah, that's right. Pause. Nah, everybody's dead now but Molly, Helen, Margaret, and Edward. That's right. Well, the Lord touched me today. He paused a moment, listening. Rachel, that ain't you crying now, is it? This old Eddie Thompson, you remember me? Don't cry now. After reading chapter 20, Old Man Shosky, my question is that did James actually find out what he was trying to find out, which was Ruth's past or where she came from? I think James did eventually learn what kind of family Ruth was living in and like the situation with her dad and her mom and the way that like her dad behaved. And like I guess James has a better understanding of how like Ruth's upcoming was kind of difficult as well.